This week on EV Rider, we're checking out an automotive brand that recently launched in the US that you may not have heard of yet. Come along as we take you for a spin in the VinFast VF8. VinFast has been speeding along like a rocket. It was formed in 2017 in Vietnam and already has a full lineup in its native country. That's kind of amazing if you think about it. Tesla was formed way back in 2003, but by 2011, it had built less than 2,500 examples of its Roadster, with the Model S replacing it in 2012. By comparison, in the second quarter of 2024 alone, VinFast delivered more than 12,000 EVs, and those numbers are growing fast. Here in the US, VinFast is launching with the VF8, which is aimed at the heart of the mid-size SUV market. Perhaps the VF8's biggest feature is the longest limited factory warranty in the industry at 10 years or 125,000 miles. Most EV makers have 8-year, 100,000-mile warranties. The base model starts at $46,000, while the top trim Plus model comes in at just under $52,000. But is the VF8 anything you'd want in your garage? Let's find out. If you're in the market for an SUV, it checks quite a few of the boxes EV owners have come to expect. It starts with a power sunroof and sunshade that's also fully powered. Moving to the infotainment system, it's a video entertainment powerhouse, coming with Sony's Ride View, which has a vast catalog of movies that can be streamed on the center screen while parked. It's also got a suite of pre-installed games. VinFast did cut a few corners. There's no satellite radio, HD radio, or AM radio. But thanks to wireless Android Auto, wireless Apple CarPlay, and its web browser, you'll be able to find streaming versions of most of those stations. Overall, I'm happy with the VinFast interior. Let's go ahead and start with the essentials. Of course, you've got a center console with a good amount of storage space. You've got a non-slide spot for your smartphone up front, and yes, it does include wireless charging, and it also includes 2 USB power ports as well. You've got a volume control, which is a nice touch for your entertainment center right here, in addition to the redundant area over in the steering wheel. And then you've got what I think is kind of a nice solution. Instead of a traditional gear shift, you've got buttons for the different drive, park, reverse. The EPA estimates the base model VF8 has a range of 264 miles, with VinFast saying the VF8's battery has 87.7 kilowatt hours of usable capacity. The all-wheel drive base model has 349 horsepower, while the Plus model ups horsepower to 402, while dropping the range to 243 miles per charge. When it comes time to recharge, the VF8 is rated at a peak charging speed of 160 kilowatts in ideal conditions and 11 kilowatts on the AC charger at home. At last check, there was no word on whether VinFast was close to reaching an agreement with Tesla to gain supercharger access, as many EV brands have done. But even without superchargers figured in, the US charging infrastructure is rapidly improving. VinFast rates the VF8 Plus's 0 to 60 time at 5.5 seconds. Adaptive cruise control, lane keeping, and lane centering assist are also along for the ride on all trims. Now I'm going to go ahead and put on the VinFast adaptive cruise control. So I'm turning it on, I'm setting my speed, and I'm also putting on the self-steering. So at the moment I'm hands-free. Now the VinFast, like many cars today, isn't truly hands-free. It will tell you to put your hand back on the wheel every once in a while, but it does go ahead and keep that lane for you in many interstate conditions, which is a nice feature. In addition to the sunroof and extra horsepower, the Plus model includes a 10-speaker sound system with woofer, up from the base car's 8 speakers. The Plus trim also gets a power liftgate. Now, those of you that watch EV Rider know I'm not really a fan of cars that decide to forego a gauge cluster. In this case, VinFast, I think, has taken the best of both worlds. What it's done, it has forsaken a traditional gauge cluster in front, but that's okay because it gives you a full suite of information in the heads-up display. And it's taken a page from what Tesla does. In addition to the heads-up display, it also has everything that you need, such as your speed limit and gear and such, in the left-hand corner. So between the two, you'll always have a good view of the essential information. The VF8 has plenty of punch when you put it in the sport mode. It's not the neck-breaking punch that, say, something like a Mustang Mach-E GT has, but if you're coming from a gasoline car, it's going to feel plenty quick. So I'm getting on the Beltway here in Jacksonville, which is Interstate 295. Took the curve very nicely. I'm already up to the speed limit, coming up on the ramp, and I barely laid into the throttle. You know, one thing about EVs that I just never get tired of is the instant torque. I've said it many times, so many reviewers have said it. Hopefully by now, every driver out there is, even if they've never experienced an EV, is aware of the instant torque that EVs have. But you know, for people that are still hesitant about an EV, you know, whether it's the VinFast or any car you can think of, I'd highly encourage you to go test drive an EV at some point. I think when you do, you are going to be very pleasantly surprised at how smooth they are, all of them these days. And the VinFast is certainly no exception. You know, I think passengers will find the VinFast a comfortable place to be. One of the surprising luxuries that you have in this car in the rear is the rear seats are adjustable. So for example, I like to have my seat a little bit more reclined, but my wife prefers her seat much more bolt upright. In the VinFast, you get that choice. You do also, of course, have a center armrest. You have cup holders that fold out. And then you've got AC vents. And what's nice, right below those, you've got 3 power ports. So you could be simultaneously charging 3 different devices back here, and that center USB-C port is 90 watts, which should charge up things like laptops and tablets fairly quickly. Out back, the VF8 has 48.4 cubic inches of storage space with the rear seat folded. It also has a second trunk up front. Italian design house Pininfarina styled the VF8. Personally, my favorite aspect of the design is the taillights. EV Rider tested 2 VF8s. The first one had a host of firmware or software issues and a front trunk that didn't latch correctly. Updates corrected the issues EV Rider encountered with the adaptive cruise control, lane centering, and turn signals, which behaved erratically. The second VF8, which was up to date, worked as expected. While it's never good to see a new car with bugs, it is encouraging that VinFast was able to correct the issues in the early build cars so quickly. And VinFast is continuing with its lightning speed rollout with its larger VF9 3-row SUV. A big thanks goes to Tom Bush VinFast here in Jacksonville, Florida, for providing the VF8 featured in this review. If you've enjoyed this episode of EV Rider, please be sure and go ahead and give this video a like so I can bring you more adventures in EV motoring and more road tests like this one. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.